Psychotechnologies live.
Psychotechnologies, woo!
Oh, we're back on again. This week.
Yeah, good stuff.
We're stretching. We're having a stretching moment. This is a
we got to take up that space, those airwaves, and make it ours.
we gotta I need to go find some like Rocky theme or something.
Bam, 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 bam.
Technologies live.
Yeah, good stuff. So very normal week, not special at all in any way. Yeah, we were going to talk about this article that I found on Twitter. It's neurotic.
This is written by Romeo.
Yeah.
So Romeo Stevens, shout out, hello.
Yeah.
Good meditator guy, lots of wisdom. Made some comments on maybe I can name the problem space. The problem space is that we have all these ancient languages in which various things were written down, various scriptures or wise words, or even like religious texts, right? Most of the Judeo-Christian Bible was in ancient Hebrew and then Latin. Like even before Latin, it was in something else. Like it's been translated a bunch of times. And then
I think Greek was the first translation, and it was like super not cool, bro.
Right. And then you've got the New England Bible where they sort of mixed them out. They put their own bits.
Yeah.
Reinterpreted.
King James Bible became like
King James Bible,
yeah. There's been a lot of like Bible translations.
Right.
Very controversial.
And that's in Christianity. And then in Buddhism there's ancient Pali and Sanskrit, which then obviously we translate to whichever languages we're in, like English. And there's a way in which we can do spirituality, which is to capture mysteriousness in along with the spirit. Like spirit is mysterious and magical and far away, and if only you knew the like secret meaning of this translation, then you would know the true nature of suffering and how to make peace with it. But because you don't speak ancient language, then you don't know. You'll just have to trust my translation. I am the stepping stone for your spirituality.
Like those ancient people knew it, and I speak the language, so I'm the gatekeeper.
Right.
How do you, like, who are you to try to understand your own reality?
either pay me money or like just revere me spiritually, and so other people will pay me money, and then I'll open the door for you because I'm such a great guy.
Yeah, like dole it out little bits at a time, because like the mystical stuff, not because like I understand it and I'm the best and everything, but you know, it's you that's the problem.
Yes, or it's me that has the key, that's the
I'm the gatekeeper. They do the gatekeeper stuff. Which, to be fair, like some of that is true, right? Like there is, like if you have knowledge, you gatekeep that knowledge, right? Like it's up to you to disseminate and share it.
Right. But also like as a constituent, like as a student, you don't already know the stuff, right? Otherwise you wouldn't need to be a student. You'd just be some guy who knew the stuff. So there is some sense of the teacher does have knowledge, right? Hopefully the teacher is not like in an unreachable league of their own of knowledge, like the teacher is one of the gods, right? Because if the teacher is one of the gods, then like guru status sometimes happens, teacher is one of the gods, and therefore unreachable, and therefore you will forever be a worshiper and not a god yourself. If you like, no matter what you do, you'll never reach god status.
Can't ascend.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't ascend unless you have direct experience yourself, direct knowledge, or direct generating.
Right. So there's a couple mistakes here around spirituality. One is putting it like far away or putting it mysterious or impossible or foreign or unique and special. And like, don't get me wrong, I made all of those mistakes as well. Like, it is enticing to think I'm going for the exotic spirituality, the one where I have to travel to India or Israel. You know, there's a couple of locations of spiritual centers in the world, one of them being India, one of them being Israel. There's a couple others around the world, but generally they're like, if you make a spiritual pilgrimage, it's to one or the other. There's a different type of spirituality in like Japan, where you have more of the Zen like peacefulness, and you can sort of do that anywhere. And then obviously there are native cultures all over the land in the world, and so it is whichever land they are on that they respect.
Yeah, like more local gods. When I was in Hawaii, I was privileged enough to go and worship one of the local gods with the people, and that was really fun. Mauna Kea. It's like the mountain on the big island.
Right.
The island of Hawaii.
So the interesting thing about Hawaii is that the mountains are volcanoes, and so occasionally they like, talk. And so
they have whole like it's part of their culture, like tracking that stuff and like the orders of which the things happened. But what's really cool is like the mountain we went to is, it's not a desert, but it's desolate. So like, because it's all this like broken rock everywhere, because it's like a new, like geologically new, where it like it like got exploded, and then like there's all this rock, and like nothing grows, and it's just like a horrible place to live. It's really nice to visit. But it's like, and then for them it's like sacred, like it's a sacred place where nobody's supposed to go. And when you go there, you see why nobody should live there. Like, it's not a place to live. It's a place to go do. They used to do like military exercises and stuff there, and like pilgrimages and stuff. And so it's pretty cool, because there's like a whole protest. We went to the protest as well. There's like a whole protest there because they're building like these astronomy telescopes on the island, and it's like a whole thing I don't want to get into. But yeah, it's like this like sacred, like desolate place, and if you don't respect it, you'll die. Like, not nowadays, because it's not that big, but and there's like roads and stuff, but yeah, there's something very, it's something very powerful, like that local god to that area. And we did the hulu. I didn't really do the hulu. I think we weren't allowed to do that, but we were like part of some of the other stuff.
Right. So spirituality that is like mysterious and ancient in language, or specifically local, or right. So
yeah. And what does it mean, right? Because like it's really cool, because like this is like the article like that we're going to go through talks about that, where you kind of have like, I don't know, like we tend to say like Western ideas, and then they get translated in like weird ways. So you have this like picture or vibes or atmosphere or tone that's very different than the people that are actually living that life. And because like I had this like kind of idea of like the Polynesian gods and things like that before, but then when I went there, I'm like, oh, this actually makes a lot more sense. Like the way they interact with, like, it's like what's the term, like agent arena relationship. Like once you're there with the thing, and then they have all these stories and legends and ways of relating to it, it becomes very reasonable. You know what I mean? Instead of like this like when you hear these stories, like it's like this like very like disconnected from reality. It's just like ideas in your mind and things like that. But when you're there, it's very like, oh, like, because you live this way, because because the environment's this way, and then you live this way, and you have this level of technology and social structures, and so then you create the lore, the mysticism out of that. And that's like that's actually reasonable in those situations. But then they wind up being very local, like local gods, like to the area. So like doing those rituals or doing that stuff like here doesn't. And maybe it was different if I like grew up that way, or if I was that, but like it doesn't really make sense to do that. The cool thing I think about like monotheism and like Buddhism, or like let's say the Eastern religions, is that they're non-location tied. So Buddhism makes sense to anyone that has like consciousness, essentially, which is like everyone.
So we can take them into space, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, Buddhism we can, but Judaism has a return to the land of Israel.
Yeah, but there's something like it's kind of like split up a bunch. So Judaism has this kind of return, but it's like you can still practice Judaism outside of Israel.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's a different kind of Judaism, but it's the same, really.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question of moving to the future. We are going to continue to be a global population, right? And most of the biblical structures, we're going to go for like Judeo-Christian, Islamic, they were set up in a time when you had one central big place that everyone would pilgrimage to like once a year or so, or that's sort of in the story, but we didn't understand a global population back then. And there's a benefit to gathering everyone in the same place to like have a big party, celebrate each year. But pragmatically, as we go forwards in time from here, we may not gather in the one, we may not even be on the same planet in the future. So we'll need a spirituality that like
pilgrimage to Earth every year.
Well, it takes 3 damn years to get from Mars to Earth anyway. So they ain't coming back all that often. Even if they did have enough oil to send them on a rocket back, they'd have to to build the damn rocket. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's the whole science and logistics and stuff like that. But like, it might be like maybe like Earthlings will, sorry, Marslings, Martians, I guess they're called, like people that grew up on Mars, like make a pilgrimage to Earth. It's like Muslims do with like the Hajj, where they like all Muslims are to make a trip once in their lifetime to Mecca. I think Mecca and Ahmadiyya, which is Mecca.
Yeah, so the biblical religions were set up in a world where traveling to one place was practical, or like gathering the people into one place for the big harvest festival once a year was practical. And then they don't really have rules or plans that apply to what if you live on the other side of the globe, because they weren't really globe aware. Whereas Buddhism you can practice anywhere you go, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
So it's a different structure of religion, but we're going to need religions that can do the more collective thing, in the way that the biblical religions can, and also not be tied to place. That'll be a future problem.
Yeah, I mean, Christianity, I think, does that, where it's decoupled from Israel. Like, there's
a bit more decoupled. People still go to see where Jesus walked, but
that's a little more like oh, those guys are like cool. I want to like see where they lived and stuff,
right.
And what was it like, and get in their mindset.
People do go and get Messiah complexes.
Yeah, Jerusalem is like super acid.
So it must have been common enough.
Yeah, Jerusalem's got its own, like there are like mental illnesses that are all like very specific to to Jerusalem, which is very interesting. Which like living there, like I kind of get it, because like it does feel like anything is possible in this like religious space. And you do have all these people living these lives, like they just, like I imagine in India you have similar things, right, where you have people living like yogis, right, like where they're just like, this is their life. Like it's not the same as like grow up, go to school, get a job, like get married, have kids, like that's a life, like that's like, I guess, a standard life or something. And then these yogis are just living in a different reality almost.
Right.
And maybe, maybe it's more closer in touch with reality or not. Like, I'm not judging that. But yeah, you get that a lot in Israel as well, where just everything is possible. Like, you can do anything.
All right, shall we go look at this article?
Yeah. So I like this article because he's just like to give some background. The tweet that was shared was saying that we don't give enough credit to the Four Noble Truths. They're like the F equals MA of psychology. They're very short, elegant, hard to vary mechanistic explanations of and solutions to the great majority of the world's suffering. A remarkable theory that's been proven true for thousands of years. This is by Nick Camerat. And then he quotes this article. Oh, sorry. Romeo replies and says, the common translation are pretty bad and don't point directly to it. And then Jeff Harris quotes this article. And like, that's what kind of got me into it, where like that's sort of my orientation, where it's like F equals MA is like force equals mass times acceleration, which is like a very basic tenet of
engineering,
physics. Like engineering is based off of physics.
Yeah.
And like that's sort of just like a very basic premise of physics. Like, if you don't, like, it's just very fundamental to how we understand physics today. And it's like, I'm not saying that like that's not, and I think like to do the metaphor, like it can be very often to like, it can be very, very often difficult to like calculate it out or to see how it is in real life. And then sometimes it doesn't make sense to really look at the world that way. Like, it just gets too complex too quickly. But you kind of like, if you want to understand physics, you kind of have to understand these things. You have to understand that. And I think he's saying, and I don't know if I totally agree with this, but it does seem to make sense. Like, I haven't fully thought through, but he is saying that on a very basic level, if you want to understand like psychology or spirituality or whatever, like, you have to understand this. You have to understand the Four Noble Truths.
Which are?
Right. So Four Noble Truths. So we can go through the article, or we can just sort of do it. But yeah. So the Four Noble Truths. So desiring is the cause of all suffering. Right. So dukkha is suffering. So suffering is real. It's an innate characteristic of existence, and in the realm of samsara, which is like the one that normal people live in. And then sumdaya, origin, arising. The dukkha which arises comes together with tanha, which is craving, desires. So suffering.
No idea. This is. I mean, I know. My journey into Buddhism was to ignore any words I didn't understand, and better translations. So you can name ancient words a whole bunch, and I'm still gonna go like, I think I remember what that one translates as.
Yeah. So he's saying, like, we can go through it and stuff, but really he's saying that like the translations aren't good, and it's.
Let's start with the Four Noble Truths. Like.
Yeah. So Four Noble Truths is, without using the translation, Four Noble Truths is like suffering is part of existence, essentially. The suffering comes with desire or craving or attachment, and that's the cause. The third one is the ending of the suffering can be attained by the renouncement or letting go of the attachment. And then the Eightfold Path is the path leading to the renouncement of it.
Okay,
so pretty much you have huh?
So I jumped into Google and I typed the Four Noble Truths, and there's a slightly simpler version that leaves a lot more confusion, but it's the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. Those are the four. But unfortunately, you now don't know what any of those four things are pointing. Like, what exactly is the truth of suffering?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like very like vague, and I think a lot of people just bounce off of it because they're like, what the hell are they talking about? And then a lot of people go into it and they're like, oh, this is true, but they don't know what it is exactly.
Yeah.
Like they get something out of it and then they get like stuck in seeing it in a way. And then I guess the third group is the group that does it properly or something, or like actually understands it well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I were to give my stab at explaining the four of them, I'd be like, first one is like life includes suffering in it, and that is unfortunate, and that is the way that it sometimes includes suffering. Part of the suffering, or most of the suffering, if not all of the suffering, is caused by minds and what they do. Like they get attached to things and they get aversive to things, and so they give us way more of a bad time than we need, and they cause that extra suffering. You can get to the end of that based on a desire to end suffering, but it's kind of nuanced, because if you try too hard, then you cause more suffering. And then the last one is the truth of the path. This is how you do it, or this is one way to do it, is to meditate a bunch and investigate the way the mind works until the mind stops causing itself a bunch of suffering.
Yeah.
So that would be like a broad stab at the four.
Yeah. So he's so I think that's sort of generally how it's understood. Or like at least in our circles. Right? Like everyone has like a different place that I guess are a subset of whatever we are. That's kind of like that.
Right, but we still go back to the truth of suffering, right? That's the first of the Four Noble Truths.
Yeah.
The truth of suffering, or the one you were reading was more like what did you say? Something like reality is suffering, which is a mistake. It's not quite suffering, but
it's an internal characteristic. Like it's sort of like, it's what I'm saying is like, I think it's like suffering is real. Like you suffer and I suffer and everyone suffers. And like, this is where it starts, right? Like if you're like, some people, they won't acknowledge their own suffering or the suffering of others. And then, like you can't, like, how are you supposed to engage with that?
Right. If I'm in denial or deluded, or I'm like, it's fine, or
or you don't think it's important, or you're like, yeah, suffering, but like, you know, how are we going to solve this problem? Or like, what about this? This is the thing that's real. And it's like, no. Like maybe that's also real, whatever, but suffering is real, and fucking acknowledge it and look at it and experience it and know it.
Just like Daniel walks into a building of like a meeting of engineers who are trying to build a bridge, and they're like, hey, how do we build this bridge? And Daniel's like, no, you need to acknowledge suffering. And they're like, bridge. And Daniel's like, no. I mean, I'm sure the bridge is real and stuff, but like suffering, you need to acknowledge the ground of suffering of the human mind.
Yeah. So
once you are enlightened.
So I'll be honest, like that example, like not that I really hung out with engineers per se, but I have hung out with people who are trying to get shit done but then really they're blind, because like suffering, like they have all their baggage that they bring with them, and then it's impossible to get anything externally done because they're just constantly distracted by their internal suffering.
Well, I'd say like internal politics, like them bickering with each other. An example of a type of suffering that if they're blind to, like, let's just pretend it's not there, then they really can't be productive. And it's like, oh, it's this person's fault. They said this. Like shut up. Like you're like, this is like, no, like if you deal with your own internal crap, then you'll like, none of these problems matter. And I think like those like internal politicking where you go around in circles all the time, like that's samsara. Like that world is samsara, and like to transcend it, you need to acknowledge that you're suffering and that other people are suffering. Suffering exists and it's real. And you're not going to get anything done if you don't do that. Right. Or I feel like if you don't acknowledge suffering, then you just end up doing a roundabout dance for a while longer.
Yeah, but that longer could be like, that could be years, decades.
Right, decades.
I mean, or centuries even, right? Like this stuff could be intergenerational as well. Millennia, whatever, right? but yeah, like you got to acknowledge that you don't like what's going like that, and that's like it's the thing, like that's the catalyst for change almost always is you have to acknowledge that there's a problem or that there's suffering or something's wrong. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to solve that problem.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the first one. Like you gotta like fucking admit
that stuff is pretty bad, or stuff can be pretty bad, or like
yeah, like this is the world we live in. Like, you know, you're not a bad person because you suffer. Like it's like right. You're a person, therefore you like this is part of being human.
It feels like as a strategy, the denial of suffering is like actually works for quite a while. Like it's not so bad, the like it's all right, or I'll be fine. Like these are all like reasonable strategies for putting off suffering.
There's coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
But
at the same time,
and but that's still samsara, right? Like where you have the suffering, you don't acknowledge it, but you do the coping mechanism. You're stuck in, like you wind up getting stuck in the cycle. Like you're still stuck in the cycle. You can't leave that realm until you acknowledge it. And I think that's true for everyone. Like sometimes you'll get lucky or whatever and things happen, but like in general, if you want to solve problems, you gotta acknowledge they exist.
What?
You can't pull a "we don't talk about Bruno."
What would you say about blissful ignorance in this context? Because that's like ignoring the problem and like it's fine.
So what's blissful ignorance? Like you're suffering and you're just not aware that you're suffering, or bad things are happening but you're like okay with them.
No, you're suffering but you are ignoring them blissfully.
You're suffering and that just gets worse over time.
Right.
Like you can shut your eyes to suffering. And I'm not saying that like 100% of the time you always have to acknowledge everything that's going on, right? Like this is real, and this does add, at the very least, it adds cognitive load. It probably adds it like a bunch of other loads as well. But yeah, like that's you can acknowledge the suffering of acknowledging the suffering. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And then you can kind of like piece at a time, right? You don't have to solve all of existence suffering all at once, which I think
acknowledging suffering all the way down, because you acknowledge the suffering of acknowledging suffering, and then you've acknowledged the suffering of acknowledging suffering, and it just keeps going all the way down.
Right. So how do you get out of that? That's the thing. That
first you need to acknowledge the suffering.
Yeah. So first you need to acknowledge the suffering. Yeah. And this is like very basic, right? Like this is like you're gonna solve AI safety, like to use an example that everyone can relate to. You got to acknowledge that like AI is potentially a serious problem, like an existential threat to humanity, and then you can start working on it. But if you're like, no, AI is fine, nothing bad is gonna happen, blissful ignorance, you're never gonna be able to solve that problem.
I have not.
And defining the parameters and stuff like that is also a thing. It's like kind of like the next step, but just that it exists at least. That's the basic level. Yeah. And then there's a description. So now is the insight. So that shouldn't really be an insight for people. Like maybe it was hard to get there, or maybe it's hard to understand, or it's hard to live in that world. And that's why we're here and we do the channel or whatever we're doing. Is like so that we can do it together, because like this is hard. But the next one is an insight, and maybe you've had it, maybe you haven't. And he's saying that dukkha, which is suffering, comes together with tanha. Now, I never heard this word before, but it's desire, attachment. So when you desire, or when you like want something, you're like, oh, I need that Xbox, I need that. I need my 1 million Instagram followers. I need whatever. Yeah, I need the next meal, right? Like I need food right now. That desire, or I need to get drunk, or I need to go clubbing, or whatever it is, that you're like, hey, I need that desire. In the moment that, so this is what he's saying. This is what the article's saying. The moment that Tana is literally translated as fused to or welded to. It immediately follows the mental moment that you zoom in with the attentional aperture on something. It could be that a flower or whatever catches your attention. So he's saying like when something captures your attention, so you notice something and you see it, that moment that like it grabs your attention is the moment that that suffering exists, I think.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. Let me go back 1 second. So he's saying all this stuff is happening extremely fast on a very basic level. So you don't normally like when you're going through your life, you don't notice these things. And that's what a lot of meditation is designed to do, is so that you can see these things happening, because they happen very quickly. And so he's saying, like, now he's positing essentially the F equals MA, which is it immediately follows the mental moment that you zoom in with attentional aperture on something. So attentional aspect is sometimes translated as grasping, which is closer. Imagine you are finished being pulled out of your hands and you tense your fingers to resist. So he's saying that, like, sometimes when you go and something captures your attention, or you go and look at something, your attention will move with, I think this is what he's saying, your attention will move without you letting go of it first. So he's using the metaphor of imagine you're finished pulling your hand and you tense your fingers to resist. So like you're grabbing something and then like you kind of pull away, but you're not letting go. And so then that's, or like the image is coming to mind, it's like a pickle jar. Like you stick your hand in the pickle jar, grabbing the pickles, and then you're yanking it out. And that's suffering. And I think like as a kid or like a teenager or whatever, like I know this just as like a male teenager growing up, you're always doing these things that are suffering, but you're always letting go of that. And I think women do this as well. You're always like, you're just letting that happen. Like, this is just life. Like, yeah, I'm tough and I can handle these things. And you kind of, you very like much dismiss those very small pieces of suffering. And I think what he's saying is that adds up over time.
I thought I wasn't following, but I think I am. They don't have to add up over time, of course, but often this like, to branch into Gestalt therapy, there's this concept called the Gestalt therapy cycle, which is a sequence of going to get something, grabbing it, like completing it, and then like letting it go. And the proposal from Gestalt therapy is sometimes we get halfway through that process.
Sometimes get halfway through the process and then you don't finish it. So then that stays with you over time. I think that's what he's going to say. And that adds up over time, or you find yourself in the middle of these cycles. And I think that framework kind of does map to this, where, sorry, you got cut off, so I was talking for you.
Yeah. Sometimes you enter therapy with all of these incomplete loops. It's like, I want this, I want that, I want that, and I never got them all. And so you need to free up your mind. To free up your mind, you have to complete a bunch of the loops.
Yeah. So this is how I've also approached those things, where it's like just like concentrate and finish loops. But I don't think that's actually the most effective method necessarily. Is what at least like the Buddhism is saying. So those loops like that you get caught in, I think that's samsara. Or at least like the place where they take place in is samsara, something like that. I don't know exactly what the word is referring to, but that's the general idea. And people get stuck there, and they get stuck in all these loops, and like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do all these things. And I think like that he's saying no, like you don't. You're like you don't like just cut through all the bullshit right now. Like you're suffering, and your suffering is due to your attachment. It's due to the fact that you think you have to finish all these loops, or that you're stuck in the loops. And so yeah, I guess like on one level you could complete all the loops, but you're going to be there, like you're going to be there forever. It's a certain kind of hell where like, yeah, when you finish all the loops, then you'll get out. But those loops create new loops. So the time you're going to be finished out of it is after infinite time. And I think that's why, like, you know, like it takes multiple lifetimes to like go through it for a lot of people, because you're like they that's how long it takes to complete those loops. But what he's saying is that this is the third noble truth, is that the cessation, the entering of the finished ending of the dukkha can be attained by the renouncement or letting go of the tanha. So when you know, and this is a certain level of meta awareness, I believe. When like if you can see those loops, let them go, and that will end your suffering. So you can finish them, and then they'll naturally finish, or you can let them go. And he's saying let them go. That's the way to do it. And I do agree with that, actually.
Can you just let them go? Like, do you find it easy?
No. So that's the fourth noble truth. It's the Eightfold Path. This is how you do it. But I like that that's the natural question of like, you're going, like I'm saying, hey, you're suffering because attachment, let go of it. And then your next question is how. And that's the fourth one. So that's the Eightfold Path. And this is like true, I think, and obviously true. And I like it that he's framed it in this F equals, I mean, the article has it, the Twitter has. This is why I like Twitter, because they frame things really nicely. It's an F equals MA situation where it's not like, oh, you have to do this and that, like all these other things, the world needs you, and all these other like weird stuff that people like. People to be weird with this, you know what I mean? This is how the mind works. Like this is how your experience works, your existential reality works. And yeah, like this is how you get out of it. And he does the Eightfold Path and stuff. So this is what I think he's saying. This is what I think the article is saying. He says it in like different words. Like he does a lot of like technical stuff on this. I don't know. I find this is also like, it's like a lot of this stuff is like its own form of samsara.
As in the like getting super into the intellectual understanding and what people have written about it is its own form of insanity.
Yeah, like there's like science is like this as well. Like you're not.
How do you translate the word samsara? Is it like the realm of
origin or rising?
Oh, what?
No, sorry, that's samduya. Samsara is, I don't know, translate it, but it's like hell loops or something.
Interesting.
Yeah, infinite repeating cycles of birth, misery, and death caused by karma.
Oh, so it's not any specific like you're welcome to the hell realm. It's just like you're still spinning in it.
Yeah, it's indefinitely repeated cycles. Yeah, so like when you're in the loops, so like the collection, I guess in more technical terms, like the collection of the set that contains all infinite loops, the set that contains all the loops is samsara. And then within samsara, like when you do an action that creates karma, and that karma comes back around within the samsara.
It's like there's a hole in my bucket.
Yes. Dude, oh my God, did you see the what's his name? Scott Alexander's like interpretation of that? There's a hole in my bucket too. It's like a Kabbalistic thing.
A little bit of context. There's a nursery rhyme, kids nursery rhyme called "There's a hole in my bucket."
Dear Liza, dear Liza,
Dear Liza, there's a hole in my bucket. Dear Liza, a hole.
And then the hole, so she needs. I forgot how it goes. She needs something to fill it.
I think she needed like straw to fill the hole.
She needs straw to fill it, but then she can't get the straw because she needs like a knife or something, and then but she can't get the knife because she needs a thing, and then she can't get that thing because she needs a bucket of water, and she can't get the bucket of water because it's a hole in her bucket. And so yeah, like that's that cycle, like that's samsara, like when you're in there. And and then her trying to do the thing, like that's her karma, like whenever she tries to just solve it, whatever she tries to do. So like you want to be a good person, do the right thing, because that's you're creating that karma, that's like your waste, kind of like that's where you're going to live. And so if you're a good person doing the right thing, then like that comes back around at you. And yeah, that's so you want to have like a karma, but it's really not like really you don't want to do karma. You want to transcend it. You want to escape the cycle.
Right. Wait, and so the Four Noble Truths, the fourth one is there's a path to end the karma.
Yeah. So it's the fourth path. The Eightfold Path is to move past that. Unfortunately, there was no Twitter thread to explain the Eightfold Path, so I don't really know what it is.
Well, Google's gonna back me up here with the Eightfold Path.
Yeah, so it's like right view, right resolve, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right.
I wonder why it's called the Eightfold. Like they're not really folds, but there are eight categories of things that you should do right, and so right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So as long as you do all of the eight good things, the eight things in the good way, then that will lead to the end of suffering.
Yeah, and I think this is true, right? Like right intention, like what are your intentions? Like, and if you're gonna look at it, like what are your intentions when you're doing things? Right, and you got to make sure that's right.
None of these were right intention.
What?
Right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action.
Well, what's the first one? It's like right resolve or intention.
Right understanding.
Oh, okay.
Or let me look at it.
The translations are different. Yeah.
The worst. This is the problem with translating from very old things, right? The translations are different. Okay, so this is a Wikipedia list. Right intention, right speech, right conduct or action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation and right view. Oh my God, this list is
right samadhi. Samadhi's a good one.
That's right concentration, I guess.
Yeah.
That is a very different list to when I first pulled off of Google.
Yeah, I don't claim to know that. This one stuff only recently started clicking for me. The Eightfold Path. Because I always thought it was like a thing, but it's not really a thing. It's like, let's say it's right resolve or intention, depending on which, formula you're using. Like, what is the right intention? Like, just forget everything, forget what the world is like or what you have to do or how things are going to get calculated out. Like, what, like, how should you live your life? Like, what is the intention behind your choices or your actions?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, kind of consequences be damned situation. Just like, don't worry about that. What is your intention? And this I think is like more of like a global situation. So it's not like,
because I have a slightly different version of this as well, which is more of there's a question here of what is the right way to hold an intention so as to not cause suffering? Like, how do you? There's a little.
That's that's a step too far. This is before that. You're saying what is the right thing to do this?
No.
Like,
No, I'm talking Agent Arena, where like, what is the, you can't just hold an intention, right? Because if you hold an intention, then that's a craving, right? There's a
no,
way in which
no,
you can hold an intention without the craving, without the clinging, without the really negative suffering type way to desire something. And that's what they're saying. You need to hold the right,
no.
you
I
need
don't
to
think
know
so.
how to intend in the right way without causing suffering.
I don't think so. I think that's later. I think that's right view.
Oh, damn
Um,
it.
I think
What is right?
like the very basic is like your intention. Like, so intention is the thing that you have when you don't have outcome. It's a thing you have when the outcome is blind, essentially. So imagine that there's no outcome and there's no way to do it and there's no action, there's no nothing.
Oh, so
What is the thing you're starting with?
just you intend to do good or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you tend to be altruistic. You tend to you you intend to be peaceful or whatever, like whatever it is that your intention is in life.
This is a right action. You have good, ignoring the road to hell, you just have good intentions. Right action. Right intention.
Yeah, it's good intentions, but it's not like outcome. I think people they say good intentions like, oh, I'm going to do this thing to make the world a better place. That's not intention. That's
Oh, you just like, I'm gonna
outcome.
do good without knowing how I'm gonna do good.
Yeah, like I want to make the world better, right? Like that's I think very. I don't know if that's exactly, and like people don't get too much like this stuff. I'm still figuring out as well, but yeah, like you're yeah, like that feeling when you want to do good and you want to help people, like that's the feeling. So that's the intention. That's the thing you start with, and you got to do that one right, or else the rest of the stuff isn't really go. Like again, like you could do the rest of the stuff, but then you're playing the samadhi game, the samsara game.
Mhm.
Like you're stuck in those hell realms, and then like okay, like let's hope your karma is good enough to get you out of this. But if you want to just transcend it and just not play that game, then it's that initial feeling. And I think that's a lot of like what meditation is trying to get down to. Is like just being that feeling.
Like the feeling of doing the right thing.
Well, whatever it is, right? Like okay, this is my interpretation of it, and I think other people have it differently, but like my lived experience, interaction, revelation, whatever you want to call it, I think the right intention is what is the right intention? Like what is the way you should feel? What is the thing that you should be going into life with? And like I could give you my answers, I can give you answers, but at the end of the day, none of that stuff matters. What matters is your consciousness and your like this is your job as an existing intelligence and consciousness. Like this is your job is to figure it out. And don't just like a word of advice, don't panic when you can't do it right away. Like this takes time. And you don't need to like have the answer, and it's okay to live your whole life and not have the answer. Like it's like the question is like what is the meaning to life essentially, but like on this like fundamental experiential level. And there's a good chance you're never going to figure that out. And that's okay. Like that is fine. Like this is a lifelong journey, and maybe it will take lifetimes, or maybe it's multiple lifetimes, right? Like this is like, but whatever it is, like just don't panic, don't beat yourself up about it, don't be a dick, because then that's what your intention is. And I'm of the opinion of like iterate, move fast, break things. So it's like kind of like how I like to do it, but however it is that you like to do it, it's like sitting with that and grappling with it and experiencing it.
Okay.
And then the second thing is don't fucking lie. Like say the truth. Like be in truth. Because otherwise you're never gonna figure out anything.
Well, it's not just you, it's that when you send out, this is a comic thing, when you send out lies, you will receive lies, or you will not know if you can trust what people say.
Yeah.
Return. And so it's necessary for you to, if you want to live in a universe that has above board communication, you need to send out above board communication.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you're like, that's what I'm saying. Like you're saying with the first one, like, I don't know, maybe somebody's gonna like sit, like, I'll be honest, like I haven't figured this out. Like what is the way I should exist? I have like answers and they've iterated, but it's not the answer for sure.
You just need right speech.
It's just the best one I got. And then the right speech happens next. Like, yeah, so I'm gonna say like no lying, like it's like the first one, or like it's like speak truth. And then, you know, don't be rude, don't tell one person or another person, like don't lashon hara, like don't like gossip and go, like don't use your speech for bad things.
You're gonna have to translate that one.
Lashon hara is like negative.
It's Hebrew
speech,
for,
I guess.
Okay, close enough. I would have said something like saying bad things about another person.
Yeah.
And it's one of the commandments is to not say bad things, not spread rumor.
I don't know if that's yeah. I don't know exactly. Whatever. It's I don't remember all the commandments. There's 613 of them. There's multiple rabbis with different opinions on what they are. But yeah, it's like saying bad things. Like don't like it's like essentially like gossip, but like the negative side of gossiping, where you're like, oh my god, like, and you're like talking shit about people behind their back, or you're like causing people to not like each other. Like stop that shit right now, because you if you do that, you will never fucking get anywhere. Like you'll never get anywhere, but like you're gonna be trapped in samsara. Like you're going, like this is how you create.
Been around for a couple of generations of that cycle.
Yeah, like that's not how you get out of this. Like the samsara, like the prison of like attachment and all this stuff that we talked about. Like you can't leave. Like you're not gonna be able to leave this, right? Because you need to, like, on a very basic level, like you need to like get co-conspirators or you know, things like that. Like if you're gonna escape a prison, like you want to, you know, you can't be like causing like petty shit, or you're never gonna organize. This is true for like revolutions or whatever, like anything you're trying to do, unless it's like so chaos and dissent.
We have an example that is just a like do your job. Doesn't have to be a break from prison or a revolution. It can just be like if you want to like work in a business, you're gonna have to have people who you work with.
Yeah.
Like just
it's less exciting. I like
it's less exciting, but you know, there's the Spiral Blue. We should do an episode on spiral dynamics.
Didn't we do that already?
I think maybe we did. Anyway, the like orderliness is good without like disorderliness is good in a different way. So
yeah, well, this isn't like order as in like structure. This is order as in like truth exists, and like suffering, like suffering exists even, like, right? And like don't stop like saying things that are going to make that worse. Say things that will make that better. And not calculate. Like this is just it's intention and then it's right speech. Like no, there shouldn't be anything in between that. It's you have right intention, like how it is that you should exist, and like that. For me, it's like I move into the feeling, like it's experiential for phenomenological, versus like, you know, a set of scripture laws or something, and then from that, like say things that are true, and that's it. And to me, that's prophecy. Like when you get that first shit down, and then the second shit, like the speech just comes naturally emerging. Like that's essentially prophecy once you're good at it.
See, I would also say that with speech, there is a way of talking that is like sticking to what you know. And so like I can speak from my experience and what I've seen and what I've known, and like this is what I know, and this is what I have seen, and this is what I understand because of these reasons. And it's at some point, the more I meditate, the more I'm like, oh, it's not that I can't lie. Like I can put together a sentence and like express words in a way that could be a lie, but it's just that I don't want to, and I have no cause to want to do so like accidentally my speech has become more right over time because I don't want to do those other things that are say the wrong thing, say the rude thing, say the like Wikipedia has a no telling one person what another says about him to cause discord or harm in their relationship. And it's like, oh, it's not that I can't string words together. I'm not disabled in that way from doing so. I would prefer not to. I just don't.
Yeah. Like for me, I don't want to put my mind that way because it's like it's wrong. It's not right.
Right. And it's
like it just feels disgusting. Like it feels, yeah. Like,
right. And so
like,
I'm
it's
compelled
gross.
not in a like, oh no, I'm kind of trapped. I'm not free enough to say any words in any sentence. I'm like restricted to the set of what I know or what I feel is true. But also I'm free in a way that I'm free from all of the rubbish that would happen if I did the wrong one.
Yeah. Yeah. And that also creates, the thing I like about this as well is it also creates good karma. So even if you like just stop there, like it's kind of like both, right? Like it's like transcending it, but at the same time, even if you're not like, the better you do it, the better your karma. Yeah, let's go to the next one. Right conduct or action. No killing, injuring, stealing, sexual misconduct, or material desires. I think that's correct. Yeah, like if you're gonna go around, like your actions, like do right actions. And I do think this makes sense to come secondary after the speech, because speech is like knowledge, communication, things like that, and your actions do very much emerge from.
Tacked on the end of here of like no killing is no material desires, which that seems like a big ask, like especially for most people who've not done years of meditation to come to peace with terms with material desires. Like that's a lot.
I don't think it's like, to me, this is at least the way that I'm interacting with it. And again, I'm not like, I don't have a Buddhist lineage. Like I just live the life, and so that's what I know. The no material desires, it's not that like you shouldn't want things, it's that like you get like material, like wealth is not like the thing you desire. You desire other things, and like to acknowledge that money or wealth is important to those things, I think is fine. And to say like, hey, I need money for life. Even if you need a lot of it, right? Like, hey, I need $1 billion so I can do the things that I need to do. I think that's fine. But I think it's when the material desires, when you desire the thing for itself, or like you get like that attachment to the thing, to money. Like I need to get my bank account numbers the highest because that's what I want. Like that's the most important thing. Like, no, you're wrong. That's not. But if you're like, hey, I need to get a certain amount of money so that I can feed my family or enact change in the world, or go to a beach and drink Mai Tais, like I think that's what that means.
Okay, so it's specifically pure materiality that you suspect that they're trying to shy away from.
Yeah, like material for its own sake. Like life isn't, like the things that are good in life are not material. The material is helpful, and I'm not saying don't do that, but like keep your eye on the prize. And the prize is never like a physical thing.
I want to caveat that physical things can be nice along the way, but I think sensing them as nice along the way, we're not really doing the desireful thing in the way that they're using the word. We're doing the like, I would like the more gentle preference rather than the like strong desire.
Yeah, like the example that keeps coming to mind actually is Goldfinger from James Bond, where he's like loves gold and he's obsessed with gold, and like that's his whole thing. And there's like versus like James Bond is like, okay, like at the beginning he's like, yeah, I need gold for this thing, like because he's like, yeah, my goal is to like stop people like the terrorist attack. And so along the way, he needs gold, he needs this, he needs that. And like that's like the difference, right? Is that one is a means to an end versus the end in and of itself.
Mm.
And I think it's fine to enjoy it. Like if you're like, oh, I love gold, and like you just like smush your face with it or something, right? Like that's like you can enjoy it, but like enjoy it. Like that's what you're doing. You're enjoying the thing. It's not the material. It's like that enjoyment. It's that whatever.
Frustrating that we like simplify down right action to like no material desires when what we're proposing is they mean something rather more complicated around the treatment of material desires. Like
yeah, because this stuff is hard. Like, and Wikipedia is more of like an encyclopedia. It's not a guide to life.
Mm.
And I think the no material desire, like it's all these other actions, right? Like, and then the no killing or injuring. Like, if you're gonna kill people and injure, like that's a samsara. Like you're creating samsara. Like you're creating those bad, and you're creating bad karma. Not no taking what is not given. Like that's stealing, essentially.
Mm.
No sexual misconduct. That's probably like rape or like getting into sexual relationships that you know you really shouldn't be, that are not good. And like that stuff creates bad karma.
I find that kind of complicated too, because most of what we're talking about there is like adults doing sneaky shit behind closed doors or something, right? And somehow you're an adult and also you have a brain which has decided to not act like an adult and do sneaky shit in those moments.
I'm not sure I remember that. Like I definitely do like sneaky shit, but like it's like whatever. Like because like I have a kid now, so like we don't have sex in front of the kid. So there's like that sneaky stuff, but it's like I'm not like sneaking around with like other men's wives or with married people that aren't like consensual or whatever. Like I mean whatever. I do like crazy weird shit, but the point is that it's
right, non-consent.
Like I don't do unethical sexual things.
Mm.
And like you can't do that. I think there's the unethical stuff of like cheating and things like that. Like cheating is not good. And then obviously like rape, sexual assault, or even things that are like less like clear cut, where you're like pressuring someone, or they're the other one is like they're agreeing to it, but they're not into it.
Mm.
Or even like,
the kink community has this idea of traffic light system. I said yellow light.
Yeah.
Like you can get someone to say yes, but be more like a yellow light to it rather than a green light.
Yeah. And that one's good because you get that in between where they're like kind of into it, maybe this and that, and then like, but then you're like aware of it, and like then that's the level that you're existing on. And like to me, then that's like because you're being sensitive to each other, and then that to me is like again like I'm not saying this is a Buddhist thing. Like this is just my experience in life. Like that stuff is much more okay. But when you have things where like I've had times where it's like there's sexual situation and then the girl says yes, and then I'm like, nah, it wasn't really a yes. Even though like it technically was, but I'm like, man, I'm not doing this. Like it doesn't feel right. Like again, it comes back to intention. Like it doesn't feel right. Even though it's like something I want, but it's not going to end well. And mistakes along the way happen, I think, on both sides. But that's what I'm saying. Like if you're coming from like this right intention and right speech, right conduct, then you kind of have this baseline. Oh, sorry, this is right conduct, and you've been doing right conduct. You have this baseline of like good faith and like foundation stuff showing up, where when you're going to do something, you often get a warning before you do it, like an internal warning. Like the intention doesn't feel like something feels wrong inside, and then that lets you know like move back. Right, like move back. Like, okay, is the speech right? Is the intention right? Is the speech right? Right, and then you go back. It's like, oh, actually, like the speech was off, and we didn't, because like, they're giving consent, but it's not right intention. So like the right speech but wrong intention, and it's like, no, you can't do that. You gotta go back to basics.
All right, next one.
Next one, right livelihood. No trading weapons, living beings, meat, liquor, and poisons. So no trading weapons. So the other ones I think are very. So okay, so living beings, like that's like don't be a slave.
Well, it's not just slave trader; it's animals. It's like
yeah. So they're like, I guess, of like more vegan variety. I guess living beings, like that's, you know, cattle and stuff. I don't subscribe to this, but I kind of get it.
Well, the weapons I can understand that it's better to err on the like.
The weapons as well. I think it's like I think there are weapon, like you do need weapon traders, right? But it's like who are you selling them to, right? Like if you're selling weapons to terrorist organizations, I think, you know, there's some like that would be wrong. But if you're selling them to let's say the good guys, you know, whatever that means for people.
I think that we're not in the society yet where we can happily live without any weaponry.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that there are bad people, it's just that sometimes people need to be stopped physically before they do something even worse.
Yeah.
Sometimes killing them is like you know, police do shoot people from time to time, maybe hopefully to stop them from doing worse things, like shooting many people.
Yeah.
And so when we don't yet live in a world where that is not needed at all. And maybe in the future we will, but for now we have a problem that we need to establish protective force.
Yeah. I mean, like look at Ukraine and Russia like, right now, or you know, Taiwan and China, how it's going to be.
Right.
Like there is, like I think like probably selling weapons to Russia, like the Russian army that are going to, the Russian army that's using it to attack civilian populations, like that's wrong. And maybe selling it to Ukrainians to defend themselves is right. But this one's more complicated, and I don't have any experience in arms dealing. I've seen some movies, but
I don't trade in weapons. You know, that's something I can like proudly say I've never bought or sold.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done that either.
Great, I'm doing all right on the right livelihood of that trading in weapons.
Yeah, but I think there is like I think this one is nuanced, and especially like now with a modern understanding of like incentives and things like that. And it's like that one's probably more nuanced. But yeah, you got to be like.
There's something more here in terms of like, I'm sure someone out there has done the analysis of, from a Buddhist perspective, how do we have an army to defend ourselves in times of danger without trading in weapons? And maybe someone's got an answer of the like.
Yeah, and I think that's good. Like I think like if you can like defend yourself without weapons, like Gandhi kind of did.
Gandhi got shot.
Oh, he eventually got shot, but he overthrew the British.
Yes.
The British government in India. Like that's like peacefully.
Yes. Yeah. He managed to fight an army peacefully, and then he ended up getting shot in the end.
Yeah, and I don't know, like that shit is complicated. I'm not gonna say I know what the answer is. Like this is hard. But yeah, like obviously if you can do it without weapons, like I think that's best. But I think everyone agrees with that. I live in beings, like I don't subscribe to, like I think humans are different fundamentals than animals, and I don't mind eating humans and meat and all that stuff.
You don't mind eating humans?
I've never eaten a human. Like I bit my nails and stuff, so I don't know if that counts, but yeah, I've never eaten a human, but I would be open to that in the right circumstances.
Humans have got to be consenting to such.
Yeah. There's a million caveats, and realistically, I don't think it's gonna happen. But yeah. Liqueur, so like liquor, like I think also like there's like you don't really want to. I've worked in a bar before. It's not a great place to But that being said, like I think there is, like again, I think this can be nuanced. And then poisons, like I think poison, like yeah, like if you're like selling poison to people so that they can murder each other, I think that's probably like not that's not good. But like maybe something like rat poison, where you're like, you know, protecting your food storages, or like I think people do sell things that are poisonous but are not meant to be eaten, right?
Right. So there's a bunch of cleaning products that also happen to
Yeah,
be poisonous if you have too much of them. And that's,
yeah,
I wouldn't call that trading in poisons, because the intent was not to use it for poisoning purposes, but for like cleaning your bench top sort of purposes.
yeah. So I think that's what it means. Is like, but I think like this perspective of like what are you doing for money, and like your economic side matters. And it's interesting because your economic side is number 4, like it's not number 1, right? But it's also not number 8. Like, what are you doing all the time for money? And then like that thing should be ethical at the
I'm
very
not,
least. It should be
I'm
right.
not sure if these things are in order. Like 4 is less important than 3 is less important than 2.
I don't think it's order of importance per se, but I think it's like the order of doing it. And there might be different lists and different orders, different views. So I'm not saying this is the definite one, but
Okay.
this does make sense to me so far.
Like maybe at some point you might need to choose between saying something that isn't true and killing someone. And you should probably say the thing that isn't true instead of the killing part.
It's not saying truth. It's not truth. Like I'm saying truth as in like I think that's mostly what right speech is. But technically speaking, it's right speech. Like what's the right thing to say?
Mm.
Usually that's truth, but not necessarily always, I think. But like in our day and age, usually it's mostly true, I think. Like if you're lying a lot, and you're not like a spy or something, like where it's like that's your job, or a lawyer or a politician. No, just kidding. But those ones like are a thing. Like if you're a lawyer and you're lying all the time, that's a problem. Or you're saying things that are wrong, like not right. That's a problem, especially politician. All right, so right effort.
Wait. So no trading in living beings. That's like you can't even sell a cow if you have a cow. Which I don't know if I've never sold a cow myself, but I think I'm closer to that. When I was growing up,
you traded in alpacas, right?
I didn't, but
Your family.
when I was growing up, I had a dog who had puppies, and then we sold one of the puppies. Like that was technically a trading in living being, was in the past. I don't know if moving forwards I would. In fact, no, I have. I've had birds and I've sold the birds. There you go. And I don't like. I had a problem because I had a lot of birds and I needed to not have a lot of birds. and you, those particular birds were not native to this country, and so you're not allowed to release them because they're not native. And so
Australia has delicate ecosystem. You can't just
right. Well, it's illegal to let them out, even if I wouldn't get caught. It's illegal, and chances are they just get eaten by a cat if I did. So I didn't really want to let them out. But like, what else was I meant to do? Like starve them to death, kill them? Like, oh, I can't even kill them. Right? No killing. So now I have the birds. What? Maybe I could give them away, but like giving things away is also kind of trading in my system.
Yeah.
How do you exist without owning? Yeah, I don't know. And then like,
I think that's not your livelihood. Those are actions.
Oh, that's true. So it's not that, you have a good point there. It's not my entire livelihood. I did sell them. I sold them for a small amount of money, but it was not the entirety of my livelihood was trading in animals. It was just I had pet bird. Someone gave me a pet bird for my birthday, and then or two, breeding pair, and then I ended up with a whole bunch of them. And then I was like, I don't know what to do with these birds. I'm going to have to sell some of them, and so I did, and I ended up with less. And so I guess it was. I got some money for it, but it wasn't a livelihood. It was just a. So maybe it is okay.
Yeah, so it's maybe right action, but this would be like interpretation. I think up to the user. The other thing I wanted to say is that like you sold them presumably to people that are going to take care of them, 3
Right. I
cats.
sold them. They were like tiny birds. You wouldn't want to eat them anyway. No, I sold them to a person who was a breeder who would breed them and make more birds and sell them to like pet shops and stuff, I believe. But I haven't heard of them since and seeing how they've been. But
and so to me that's almost more like giving them a good home and then some sort of token currency exchange.
Maybe. I did so meat. I worked in an abattoir for a while. That was fascinating and interesting. But I had a livelihood that was it wasn't a full livelihood, but it was they paid me for being there and doing stuff. But also that was in line with other religious practices. I was there with the kosher kill, which rolls around the system. So anyway, liquor.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, and these things are right. To me, it's like again, it's like the main thing is right livelihood, right? And so, what is right? Like, what is the right livelihood for you?
Right. So it's not that you. Well, I mean, this is a simplification when it says no trading in meat. What it means, what we want to be considering is, are we doing the meat thing? If we're doing it in the right way, at least.
Yeah.
Right livelihood.
Yeah. And I think it's up to each person in their own individual experience to decide what's right. And then right effort. So preventing the rising of unwholesome states and generating wholesome states. And then the 7 factors of awakening. So I don't think we should get into detail. We don't have enough time for that. Maybe
this one I've recently had a confusion about because you can't. Okay, so preventing the arising of unwholesome states. So that is don't deliberately start thinking about the people you hate or something, as it is hating people's a bad thing.
Like, don't make yourself miserable.
Right. Don't cause the unwholesomeness to arise. And then if you are in a shitty mood, if you're already grumpy or something, you should be moving towards more positive places, like generate wholesome states. Except that this is I have a confusion here because it's more like a practice confusion that if you're one option is if you're dwelling in something to just stay there until it dries up. Like you're having a bad day, you just stick to yourself for the rest of the day. And then at some point you'll be like, oh, I just feel better. Right. So don't shoo the state away. Don't be like, I don't care. I need to feel better. Because that desire to feel better is a craving, right? You cause an extra type of suffering.
Yeah.
So stay with it until it leaves. The other option is I'm having a grumpy day. I need to help. I need to shove myself out of this real hard. I need to do a bunch of things to try and leave here. And I'm not really sure what the right path is. Should you, and I suspect that sometimes you should dwell and other times you should try and run out of the state.
Yeah. So you're asking very good questions and they're very complicated. The first thing I would say is that obviously go back to number 1, what's your right resolve or intention or experience or whatever. And that's number 1. And then number 2, it's the 7 factors of awakening, which are awesome. We should do that next time, actually.
7 factors. Yeah, sure. Happy to.
Yeah. That one was huge for me. That was a huge change of this is cool. So yeah, I don't necessarily want to get too much into detail because that's hours, I think.
Yeah. So look, I have a question.
The 5 hindrances, and I don't know what the 4 true realities are. Oh, 4 true realities and stuff back. Yeah. I think because the 7 factors of awakening are into 4 categories. No, they're into 3 categories.
Maybe.
I don't know what the 4.
We'll do some research before next time. But we're only up to 5, right? Effort.
Yeah. So this one I think is meditation. Number 6 is all essentially meditation.
Right, mindfulness.
Yeah, and then so not meditation, but the whole mindfulness, meditation, all that stuff. Right, samadhi. Oh, fucking samadhi is awesome. Practicing 4 stages of dhyana. Jhana. Yeah. So it's the 4 jhanas. Yeah. So like samadhi is essentially concentration, or I think they call it access concentration. That's Theravada, Vipassana. So we have sort of gone through that a little bit.
Oh my God, I'm
But
like,
that's
oh no. He's butchering the categories. He's butchering all the labels. It's fine. It's fine. Let him do it.
me.
Um,
No, Wikipedia.
so samadhi is, I think we're going to go for concentration states, right?
Yeah, I think we call it. Is it access concentration as a term?
Not what I've heard. No, I wouldn't put those two things as being the same thing.
Okay. But yeah, it's concentration. I don't know what the word means, access concentration, but I like it. It's fun. So, but yeah, it's essentially concentration, but not in like the way we use it, like the way the Western stuff, the way they teach you to concentrate, which is like the thing ADHD people can't do. Like that's just like what is that? That's like self coercion essentially. That is not what samadhi is.
So for one thing at a time. So access concentration, there's a type of concentration that helps you stay on one object. And if you think about like if you've ever been really engrossed in something that like suddenly you've been doing it for a while and you're like, oh, the rest of the world hasn't existed for a while. I'm just on my one topic. That's sort of like what access concentration is, but it can be done can be cultivated deliberately. And then in this context, to get into the jhanas, you need to be concentrated enough to have access concentration. And access concentration is sort of like you just have less arising distraction. So
it's like flow state.
Doesn't have to be flow, but it is definitely like less distraction.
Yeah, or like in the zone kind of thing.
Like you're not going to get the
maybe those are examples of it.
So in the context of meditation, often it's you're sitting still or you're lying down and and the impulse to move will not come up. So it's even kind of like there's a state where like you're lying around and then you're like, I'm uncomfortable. I want to move the blanket over, like adjust. I want to get more comfortable, right? And you'll do those for a bit and then you keep meditating. And then after a while, you'll stop doing them. And the impulse to move will be just a bit further away. And that's more like what access concentration. It'd just be like, oh, it's, I would call it like a body lock. Like the body is like staying.
Oh, I see. And that's like a stepping stone for actual samadhi.
It's a stepping stone into deeper concentrations.
Yeah.
And
okay, that's cool.
Marked as a not super exciting novel thing, but as a just like, oh, yep, you're on, like start having access concentration. It's generally, I've never thought of it as a very difficult thing to get into, but it's like once you've had it pointed out to you, you're like, oh yeah, there is kind of a thing there.
Yeah, I have had that. It's like it kind of feels like how people describe like locked in syndrome.
A little. Well, there's a few things here because there's that one. There's the like, I'm lying still and I'm like, I go to lift my arm up and it doesn't move. Like a little. It's like, if I know I could actually lift my arm if I wanted to, but on the first impulse, it doesn't just like.
Yeah, like kind of like a sleep paralysis situation, but you're not.
But it's not even that strong. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm like still now.
Oh no, I've had it more like where it's stronger, where it's like it feels like I can't move, and I would have to like do something to break myself out of it. I don't really get that so much anymore, but like like working up, like that was like a milestone on my journey. Is when I could get into that state.
Right, and that state is
I guess that's access concentration. Yeah, but samadhi's definitely much better, I think.
Right. So that's where I would put access concentration, and there's more nuance and more conversation about it, but we're sort of not going down the path of the all the jhanas.
Yeah,
so.
we should do a samadhi one. It is, yeah. Have we done a samadhi in the jhana, like a whole jhana?
No, we haven't.
Okay, so we should do that one later because that one's also a whole episode. So, but yeah, essentially, it's like concentration. Like, people get distracted all the time. Like, what are you doing? What this, that? But if you can't concentrate on things, then you can't really get anything done, and you can't live your life. And so I think there is like right samadhi, like on this like highest level or whatever, or a much higher level. Like, you gotta work up to it, but I think you're kind of wanting that your life is one experience or one gestalt, and it's not one because you've blocked out everything. It's one because you've included everything. But you're still able to but there's still concentration, and focus, and direction. So like some people have direction in life and purpose and meaning, and like that fulfills them, and then some people just don't. And like I know for me, like it was a large transition from like being directionless to having direction in life. And some people do direction as in like they kind of force themselves into a narrow path, like a path that like this is the thing, and they just kind of go at that. And that's not it exactly. I guess that's more closer to access concentration than true samadhi.
All right, and the last one on the list,
right view. Our actions have consequences. Death is not the end, whatever that means.
wait. I would be cautious about like picking like the list of what the right views are. It's like it's a lot easier to say what the wrong views are than it is
okay.
what the right views are.
Yeah. So right view is like I guess like right samadhi is like concentrate on the right thing, like have the right concentration and concentrate on, I guess it's not even concentrate on the right things, it's have the right concentration. And then right view is have the right view, like see the world right or correct, like correctly, but like,
well, I think there are possibly a few qualities that land
don't see the world wrong.
One of them is like a truthful view, like you just said, see the true nature of reality, sort of. And another,
but it's not just that.
Another is to have positive stories about the world in general, and so that would be the zero-sum story of like it's all race to the bottom and then we die. There is a way in which you can tune into that story and live through that story, and it's not very fun. And I'd be like, oh, don't do that one. Do the better one.
Yeah.
Do the like, you can do good for other people and they can reward you back. And there's so much abundance in the universe, and like live that story, and you're going to have a much better time than these like the more negative stories, or the like, grudges and revenge and murder and pain. And there's a lot of negative stories available if you want to tune into them. But right view is like right narrative or right story or like right perspective.
Exactly. Like some people get stuck in paradigms that maybe they're true, maybe not true, but they leave them. Like if you see the world that way, you're gonna
have a bad time. If everyone's always out to get you, then you're probably not friends.
There's a lot of stories, like a lot of people have stories like, oh, people are mean, people don't care about things, this is like people are evil, they're out to get you, our capitalist society is going to destroy our world. And like those things, like there's truth to them for sure, but the perspective is just off. Like you're living a life of perspective where you're going to suffer and you're going to be trapped in hell, and you're going to create that for other people as well.
Right. And then we do get a little bit more complicated in terms of right view, because if you want sort of like a meta right view, right? Like it's not just you've worked out what the good stories and the bad stories are, and you've worked out how to be in the good stories. It's that even saying there are good and bad stories is a story, and that's like a meta trap, right? And then so you want to stop doing that one too, and then despite the fact that there are better stories and worse stories, if you're in a story you don't want to call it a bad story, whichever story it is, There's like a more complex mental dance skill of maintaining the right view of the right view, and more to it. And like, one of these,
because that's its own version. Samsara.
Right. You want the right view is probably a dynamic view, one that can change stories as they suit, as opposed to being stuck in one or another story.
I think it's like alive. It's like I'm alive and suffer. It's like goes back to the beginning. It's like suffering exists, and it's like the Four Noble Truths are essentially the right view, right? Where it's like suffering exists, right? So when often people will have stories or they'll have paradigms, and like when they're sharing that or when they're talking about it, there's that immediate attachment there, and then they get stuck in the loops and they go through the samsara. And so it's just like paradigms are just not all. I'm not saying like paradigms and that, but like a lot of times like people's paradigms are just samsara, just like a more interesting samsara than the other ones that you've been in. But like, and yeah, like if you want to do that, I guess like you can do that. Like it's your life, you can choose what you want. But like see it for what it is. And do all the other things so that you can see it properly for what it is. And I think like that moves into like, I guess number 9 would be like the observer self, right? Like it's like the right view is observer self. And I guess 9 would be like cessation, just like the jhanas. I always like throwing in an extra one at the end because there's always like now what. But yeah, like when you're in the right view, like you see the world correctly. This is your observer self. And if you're always seeing if you always have the right view, like that's enlightenment. Psychotechnologies live.